Okay, so here we go. This is our lab for Design 350. It's Monday, the 1st. We are online only this week, and it's about 11 o'clock, and we're on Google Meet. It's going to be a little bit shortened today, about half an hour long, and we'll just go over a few things. I'll go over the majority of what to do and what's coming up for this week, but I want to go over a little bit what's in the resources package and to show my sample of what I've got done so far so that we can discuss it a little bit. So I see from your submittals that most of you have done a very nice job, who've turned the work in for doing this front page. We'll talk a little bit more about the project data during lecture. But I see that these are well formatted and looking good. Your general notes, there's nothing to do. Most of you are getting a nice job on this, on the local services. And here's one of the things to think about, and the reason this is here. You can see that the services are all 15 minutes away by car. So that means that whoever is going to rent these tiny homes or live in these tiny homes is going to need a car. Just the way it is from where the site is. You can't just walk there. And even to get to the bus, which runs about 5 times a day in each way, it's about a 30-minute walk and a 4-minute drive. So this tells you that you're going to need parking spaces. This one right here. Welcome in, Leah. The compliance statements are pretty straightforward. You can start filling those in. We'll talk about those again on Tuesday during lecture. So this one, some of you got your property line tags in. I did one, and you need to do all the rest. Oh, there we go. That'll be a little bit better. It was being recorded. It was catching it on the recording. Just didn't put it on here. Okay, so you'll be able to go back to the demos from last week if you don't remember how to put the property tags on. But most of you are doing a very nice job with the site, the demo. Those are the topo plan. Now I cleaned this up quite a bit from what I had shown you earlier. You don't need one on every single line. You can put them, like here I'm showing every 10 feet, especially where it's steep. And I could have changed a little bit here, but it wasn't in the way, and it wasn't in the way over here. But many places would put these just every 10 feet. So you can choose to do that if you desire. Okay, it does clean it up a little bit, and that then the slopes all look good too. So now on the proposed site plan, this is where you need to make sure that you're doing a bunch of thinking. So one of the things is to think about how somebody would pull a trailer in. So if this is the trailer hitch, they're going to have to pull in forward, get it into place, and it's likely there's going to be either some portable decking or some pre-built decking that you're going to have to drive up alongside. So you want to be able to drive in and drive out without clobbering the other ones. So I've put these in this position. A couple of people had them in other nice positions where you'd be driving over this way. And again, I did not carry my egress through, but I added some parking too, right? There's 3 of these, and since there's parking needed, because there's going to be, whoever lives here is going to have a car somehow. So that's going to be of issue, and these are 9 foot wide by 20 foot long. And they can, I'm not saying how the parking spaces are built or anything, just where they are. But you can see it's easy to get in and out without clobbering each other. And cars can be parked here, and a truck can pull in and get this situated. So think about those things as you're putting these in, of how you would get this in and out. And then how would you get it out? You'd have to hook up and pull out and around. And I didn't show where my egress was. I'd probably bring it around this way and back out, so that it makes a circle, which means I might need to move these, because I'd hate to have these in a spot where something pull around and clobber it. Okay, so that's just a little bit about you know laying this out and putting them in place where they might go. There's plenty of room here for decking and other things. People can put tables out, and the common area is plenty big. That's a big common area too, by the way, right? If I were to annotate that with a diameter, I don't know why that's not picking that. Oh, it's because I'm not in the plan. This is my proposed. Right, if I were to put a diameter on that, that's pretty big. That's 60 feet. That's a pretty big area. So there's things to think about here, where you can decide um, how you'd like to have this set up. This can become a little bit smaller and bring that around maybe. Um, and these can be placed wherever you'd like them to. So there's just a little bit more. I did make a stormwater pollution prevention plan so that you can see it. I think we talked about that this would be preserved vegetation, put fiber rolls, stabilized entry and exit, and then the retention wall and the swale. So we talked about that, and you can make that up as you wish it to be. I haven't worked on that one. The proposed water power and mechanical plan, those really don't need to be in the early proposal. If we don't get to those, that'll be okay. I'm hoping we will, but we might not. And then the two detail sheets. Now, I just put in some images. I would trace over these. But this one, if I'm using somebody else's design, especially if it might get bought, I'm going to leave the attribution to them on here. Okay, and this one's not bad. It's a little bit clunky here in the toilet. Might be a little bit hard to navigate this door. But they've got a nice idea on the bed and having some little shelves here that you can walk in and out. They didn't put a sink in the bathroom because there's a sink right here, a lavatory. They put the refrigerator over here. That's not bad, easy to get to, and it opens out. So this is not a bad one. It's small, it's compact. There's not much there, but it's tight and livable and easy to build. And then here's the trailer plan, and again, I found one that was showing where the foundation supports would be located for it. And then I came over to show what the foundation supports would look like. And then for the plumbing plan, just to show how it might be, like the tank fill. There is a water main. It's not very big, and personally, I think because this is probably not big enough, I would personally probably put the water main into the tank, make the tank a little bit bigger. I'll be working with some of the design hub people to get that sizing right. But if you can deliver 2 or 3 gallons a minute, and you've got a 50-gallon tank, all you do is figure out your cycle time of how much goes in and how much goes out in a 10-minute cycle. And it helps you understand how big that tank needs to be. And this hot water heater, of course, we're going to say is a on-demand hot water heater. But this pretty much shows it. It's a pretty straightforward system. The other nice thing about going into the water tank is you can put a backflow preventer on it, and it keeps your water mains safe. So these would be traced, and traced. This one would be traced, but this one, since I'm using somebody's design and I'm attributing it to them and telling you where to go, this one can stay as an image. And I checked the image. It was a Creative Commons with attribution, and there's the attribution for it. Okay, and what's nice about this is it gives 170 square feet, because the city of San Diego wanted at least 150 square feet. So that was my progress check, and most of you were doing just fine with that, and we'll work on some of these other things as we go. But what I wanted to check on today was this template. And look, this is a new feature. If you're in a Google Doc, you can now put a watermark in. And this one's just a little too dark. I need to fade it out a little bit more, but if I do that fade, it goes all the way away. So I want to go ahead and go back to my original image and just fade it just a touch more. But you can start putting watermarks on, which is nice because then people know whose this is. So you'll see in the requirements that you need to create a letter of an intent. Okay, so what is that going to look like? And I've given you a sample template that you can start filling out. The owner's name, and you have to double click up here in the top. Double click to get into the header. The owner's name, and you can just put property owner, but you do know the address, you know who has prepared this submittal, and you know your email address. So the only thing is you don't know the owner's name. Make something up or just put property owner and just leave it like that. This is to the Planning Commission, and it's from you acting on behalf or for the owner. Okay? The owner doesn't usually, they're usually hiring somebody to help them get through a planning process. So it'd usually be whoever they've hired as a contractor to do the work. And you can put Sunday as the date, and RE is short for refers to or reference, and it's the letter of intent, and it's proposed improvements for a certain address. Okay, and so the first thing that they're going to want to know, the Planning Commission, is who are you? Who are the principals involved in this? And so you would list who is paying for and who will own, and you'll also the designers and contractors who have been hired. So they want to know that. If they want to know if you're using a contractor that they've used before, that they're familiar with, they know that the person follows directions and knows how to do things, and they're much more likely to approve something when it's somebody that they're familiar with than somebody who goes like, no, that person never follows the rules, never makes submittals, never does this, never does that. And likewise with designers, if they're familiar with a set of designers, like, okay, this is going to be great. We know where sign-offs are. We know where this is. We know that they take care of things. That's good. So they want to know who the principals are right off the bat. Then you go into the background. That's where you go, there is a need, and we're going, and the need is this. And in this case, we're looking at local foster youth. And so there's data, and there's a bunch of data that was put into the discussion board. And I'll be getting with Ryle also to get some of the data. He's got some excellent maps for us to add in. And you can refer to some of this data in an appendix or attachments later on, but you need to summarize the need. And this shouldn't be long. It should be 3 or 4 or 5 sentences. You don't have to support the evidence or provide evidence that comes in your attachments. You can just make statements here. And make it flow and make it focused on that there's a need. And then you're going to summarize the main objectives of the proposal, and somebody who reads this should be able to look at the objectives and see that it meets the needs. But you're also going to put in here not just how it's going to meet the needs, but what is the owner going to get out of it? This is provide rental income by focusing small shelter and home improvement or supply improvement, primarily focused to foster youth who are emancipating from the system. There's something like that. Okay, brief and to the point, but it needs to meet this need and also show what the homeowner or the property owner is going to derive from it, what they're going to get. And then a brief description of the proposal. This is an existing residential site of approximately 2 acres. It's a local housing infill project that is similar to, right, something else, right, that consists of, and then you pick 1, 2, or 3, or as many as 3 tiny homes located on the lot that will utilize existing utilities, bank, something like that. Okay, so that's the proposal. Your statement, your compliance statement is actually very simple. You basically just state that you intend to comply with all regulatory requirements, including but not limited to, and then make a list of some of those, local zoning, local health, social services, things like that, and if there are any neighborhood issues. Coordination is list any local coordinating agencies, and then it's a good idea to show that if there's a neighborhood group or neighborhood agency, or even if you've just posted your intent to neighbors and host a meeting to gain their feedback, that shows that you are going to be taking all of those steps to make sure that you're integrated and you're not going to be ruining some efforts that are ongoing, right? You want to make sure that your neighbors are down with this. Okay, so this should take maybe an hour or 2 to put together, and then reread it and put it together and reread it and put it together. But you can literally leave it like this, and then some people like to indent those a little bit. Okay, that's a pretty big indent. That looks a little better. So you could do something like that if you want, but you don't need to. Sometimes people, instead of doing that, instead of doing that, they'll either italicize or bold and italicize those. Avoid underlining because now underline means that it's a link. So try to avoid underlining. And then when you get down to the bottom, there are this is where you put your additional information, or you talk about the local services that are available, the ones that are lacking, identify any of the local foster youth organizations and their contacts. You can specifically identify the similar projects that are nearby and provide that evidence of sustainability for a minimum of 5 years. And then you've got your submitted by and the date, and then attachments. So this is where you would put your link to a sample rental agreement, just so they know that you're going to follow a standard template from, the county or the state or something like that. And then if there are any specific attachments that you need for, the similar projects or local services or maps or anything like that, wherever you need attachments that support some of these things that you're doing because you haven't included it in this letter. The letter really should be no more than 2 pages. Okay, so there's your letter of intent. Now your letter of support is a cover letter that tells them who they're going to be getting them from and why. Okay, so you would just say who your supporting organizations are, and again, you could do that, and a brief description of, how they're connected to or how they affect the project outcomes, right? So any of the local organizations, if there's a local church that does outreach support or a local nonprofit or, the youth services, or we found in Hamul, there's a really, at the College of Quayamuca or something like that, that's 15 minutes away. There's a really strong foster youth outreach program. So you could list all of those and show that you're going to have a letter of support from them. And then you would provide them with this template. Okay, that says, you're going to provide this, and you're going to provide this, and you're going to provide this, and this. That's just a copy and paste from your letter of intent. And then you're going to ask them to provide the statement of support. Okay, which will say, yes, we've been involved for 20 years. We've touched the lives of, 250 foster youth in those 20 years. We have these outcomes, and we support this project. There. Okay, and so this is all stuff that you will write. And then this is what you're going to ask them to write, and then they'll sign it down here. Okay, so this is the template that you would give to them and say, can you please write us a letter of support? We want to make it easy. Here's exactly what we're doing, and we're going to be asking for you to give us some support. Okay, so the letter of support thing is covered in two things. One is this list of supporting organizations and how you plan to interact with them. And who knows? You can make stuff up. It doesn't have to be real, because this is what our client will do that's real. And then this is something that you'll write up the top part and have this available just to hand to them and say, oh, here's our template. Can you please finish it? So that hopefully it takes them, 15 or 20 minutes instead of having to think for half an hour or an hour and figure out what it is that you're doing. Okay, so that gives you the chunk of this part to do. Okay, and then also I should note down here, you would also put a link to the drawing package PDF. Um, that would be part of this also, right? And any other things that have already been done. Sometimes, if there are trees that need to be kept, there's an arborist report. If there's a local community planning document that you've addressed, that would be, and that you've shown that you've done it, you would do that. And if there's a local heritage group that you have to show, so any attachments that are sort of preliminary would be put in here. So there we go. That's what I've got for you today. Do you have any questions before I log off?
All of those forms are in the link.
Yes, those are in the Project One weekly resources.
Okay, perfect. I know
And
where that one's at.
yeah,
Awesome.
and the link itself is in the workbook samples and work plates weekly resources file. So I just added those in there. And this one is I gave a direct link to because that's the big one.
Okay.
Cool?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, then there we go. I'm going to stop the recording.